My name's Dana, and I'm 37 years old. I've never been married, don't have kids, and I live alone in a quiet apartment on the second floor of a building that smells faintly like old wood and cinnamon, thanks to the bakery downstairs. I like it here. It's peaceful, predictable. I've always been the dependable one in the family. At least that's what they call me when they need something. Groceries. A ride. Help with medical bills. Can you cover the electric this month? Could you transfer just a little for mom's prescriptions? The twins need new shoes for school, just until next payday. It started small. Little things here and there. I didn't mind. Really, I didn't. I have a good job. I work in IT, mostly remote, and I'm careful with money. No fancy car, no lavish vacations, no high-end fashion, just stability. That was my luxury. Stability. My sister, Caroline, is 3 years younger. She married her college boyfriend, has 3 kids, and lives about 20 minutes away in a bigger house than they can afford. My brother, Rick, is 41 and still floats from one get-rich-quick scheme to the next, living with our parents off and on. My parents. Well, let's just say they never quite figured out how to retire gracefully. Dad's pension barely covers the mortgage. Mom still works part-time at the library but insists she deserves to shop like she's still in her 30s. So I helped. I've always helped. I didn't complain when Caroline forgot my birthday for the 3rd year in a row. I didn't say anything when Rick borrowed my laptop and returned it with a cracked screen and a shrug. I didn't even flinch when Mom made that comment last Christmas. Dana, it must be nice to have so much disposable income when you don't have a family to care for. She said it right after I paid the entire grocery bill for dinner. No one blinked. Not even a thank you. They don't see me, not really. To them, I'm just there. A utility. Quiet, dependable Dana. No drama. No chaos. Just a credit card and a smile. That card, by the way, was meant to be for emergencies. Years ago, when Dad had his first health scare and the hospital bills started piling up, I added my parents to one of my older credit cards. Just for doctor visits, I said. Only if you absolutely need it. They nodded solemnly, promised it was just a backup. I set up email alerts for purchases, but over time, they stopped coming. I assumed the card was dormant. I assumed wrong. A few weeks ago, I was organizing my files. Digital clutter gives me hives, and I decided to audit all my accounts. You'd be surprised how easy it is to forget old auto payments or idle subscriptions. I clicked into that card out of habit. My eyes skimmed the recent statement, expecting maybe a pharmacy charge or two. What I found made my hands go cold. For airline tickets to Aruba, a 5-night stay at a beachfront resort, restaurant bills, spa services, all in 1 week, all within the last 2 months. I blinked at the screen, refreshed it, stared again. My parents don't even like flying. Caroline and her husband had posted vague beach photos on Facebook last month with captions like, "Well-deserved family getaway." I hadn't thought much of it at the time, just scrolled past. But now, I scrolled further. More charges. A shopping spree at a high-end mall in Miami. A rental car service. And then, tucked in between all that, a charge at a luxury baby boutique. Caroline had mentioned something about hosting a baby shower for a friend. I hadn't been invited. I leaned back in my chair. My apartment was quiet, as always. The only sound was the faint whir of my ceiling fan and the soft thump of my heart, suddenly louder in my ears. I opened my banking app, searched the email archive. Nothing. No alerts. No warnings. Just transaction after transaction, each one a new insult wrapped in silence. I called the card company. They confirmed the users, my mother, my father, and, somehow, Caroline. Authorized users, they said cheerfully. Added back in February. February. The same month I'd helped Caroline pay her heating bill. The same month Mom called crying about a surprise car repair. That was also the month they'd forgotten to invite me to Dad's birthday dinner. Rick had posted a picture of the cake. Family first, the caption read. I couldn't remember the last time someone had asked how I was doing. Really asked. Not out of obligation, but out of care. I was the provider, the fixer, the one who picked up the pieces. And while I was busy gluing things back together, they were living it up in beachfront resorts and spa lounges, laughing over drinks I unknowingly paid for. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. Instead, I sat there, staring at the screen, letting the silence wrap around me like armor. Later that day, Caroline called me. Coincidence, maybe. She needed help with the kids, something about a half day at school, and no sitter available. Her voice was rushed, distracted, like she was already assuming I'd say yes. I said I was busy. She paused. Since when? I didn't answer. I just said goodbye and hung up. That night, I gathered receipts, downloaded statements, highlighted every transaction I hadn't authorized. I made copies, took screenshots, created folders. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I needed the truth in front of me. Tangible, documented. The next day, I visited my parents. Mom greeted me with that usual surprised look, like I only existed when she needed something. Dad was asleep in the recliner. Their house smelled like lavender and leftovers. I noticed a new flat-screen TV on the wall. She caught me staring. Oh, that? Rick found a deal online. He's so resourceful. I said nothing. We sat in the kitchen. She offered coffee, and I accepted, even though I didn't want it. I needed to study her face, to see if she'd flinch when I brought it up, if she'd pretend not to know, if she'd double down. But I didn't bring it up. Not yet. I asked about Caroline, about the kids, about Rick. She complained about everything. Said I was lucky not to have a family of my own. Said being single was easy. I smiled, nodded. Then I stood up, thanked her for the coffee, and left. I knew what I had to do. And just when I thought I had all the pieces lined up, I got a text from Rick. 2 words. No context. Need help. That was the moment everything shifted. I stared at Rick's message for a long time. Need help. No explanation, no greeting, not even a question mark. Typical Rick. My first instinct was to ignore it. That same dull ache in my stomach returned. The one I'd come to associate with my family's endless requests, their entitled tone, the expectation that I'd always say yes. But this time, something felt different. Maybe it was the timing. Maybe it was because I had spent the night collecting evidence of their deceit. Or maybe I was just finally tired of being the safety net no one appreciated. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I didn't reply, but I checked social media. Rick hadn't posted in a few days, which was unusual. He practically lived online, bragging about his latest business ventures and reposting motivational quotes about hustle culture. I scrolled until I found Caroline's profile instead. And that's when I saw it. A picture just posted an hour ago. Caroline, her husband, Rick, and my parents standing on a dock beside a lake. Sunlight dancing off the water. Matching polos. Wine glasses in hand. The caption? Annual family weekend. So blessed to have this tribe. Annual. Family. Weekend. I stared at that word, family, for longer than I care to admit. I hadn't been invited. Not even a mention. They were at the lake house. The one Dad's old friend left him in the will. It wasn't anything extravagant, more rustic than luxurious, but it had been in our family for decades. I used to go there as a kid, skipping rocks on the water, roasting marshmallows with my cousins. The last time I'd been invited was 6 years ago. I remember because I'd brought a new board game I was excited about, only to have everyone brush it off for phone time and cheap beer. After that, the invite stopped. Quietly, without explanation. I assumed they just didn't go anymore. Clearly, I was wrong. I felt heat rising in my chest, slow, burning, steady. Not the flash of anger that makes you yell, but the kind that sits deep and turns your thoughts razor sharp. I went back to Rick's message. Need help. I tapped out a reply, then deleted it. No, not yet. Instead, I opened the folder on my computer, the one I'd labeled receipts. It was time to stop being quiet. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed replaying conversations from the past year. The hints. The dismissive comments. Mom joking that I was too sensitive. Caroline laughing at one of Rick's digs about how you can only afford to be generous if you're alone. And me, sitting there, nodding along, brushing it off. What kind of person was I becoming? At 3:17 a.m., I got out of bed and opened my laptop. I drafted an email, not to them, but to my bank. I flagged the suspicious activity on the credit card. I requested documentation of authorized users and dates. I contacted the card issuer and filed a formal dispute. I wasn't sure what would come of it yet, but I needed the paper trail. I needed control. The next morning, I called out of work. I took a long shower, got dressed, and drove to my parents' house again. This time, I didn't text ahead. I walked in with a quiet calm I didn't recognize in myself. The calm of someone who's done being used. Mom was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove. She looked surprised, again, and a little annoyed. Back so soon, she said. Is everything okay? Not really, I replied. She raised an eyebrow. Well, if this is about the thermostat again, I told you. Your father likes it warmer, and it's not about the thermostat. I sat at the table and pulled out a printout of the Aruba charges, neatly highlighted. I laid it flat in front of her. Her eyes darted over it, then back up to me. I could see the moment she realized what she was looking at. Oh, that. Well, that was, your father needed a break. Caroline found a great deal, and I wasn't asked. Well, we didn't think you'd be interested. You're always so busy with work. You said you didn't like beaches anyway. I didn't say that. I said I had deadlines that week. You never even told me. Silence. Then she said it. The line that burned itself into my memory. Well, Dana, you don't have a family to take care of. You have the flexibility. That's why we figured that I'd just pay for everyone else's fun. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. But my hands were shaking, and I knew she saw it. For the first time in years, I let the silence sit between us. I didn't rush to fill it with a joke or a shrug. I let it stretch until she looked down at the table and started fidgeting with her bracelet. What exactly do you want? She finally asked. Do you want us to pay you back or something? Is this about the money? That part made me laugh. It was so absurd. She said it like I was asking for gas money after a ride to the airport. No, I said. This is about respect. It's about the fact that you've been lying to me, using me, making me feel guilty for living differently, because I don't have kids, because I live alone, because I make more money. You called me selfish, Mom. You mocked me. And all the while, you were using the card you promised not to touch for vacations I wasn't even invited to. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said softly. We just thought. No, I interrupted. You didn't think at all. Or maybe you did. Maybe you knew exactly what you were doing. She didn't respond. She didn't deny it. I stood up. I've already disputed the charges. The bank's investigating. If they find fraud, they'll cancel the card. I've also removed all of you from my account. That means no more access. Not to my credit. Not to my name. Not to me. Her mouth opened and closed like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. As I reached the door, she finally said, Dana, you can't just cut us out like this. We're your family. I stopped, turned around. So am I said. I'm my family too, and I'm finally choosing me. And then I left. But that was just the beginning. The real fallout started 2 days later, when Caroline called me screaming. The call came at 6:41 p.m., just as I was setting a pot of water to boil. I glanced at the screen, Caroline. I let it ring once, twice. My fingers hovered over the decline button, but I hesitated. There was something satisfying about watching her name light up my phone like an alarm. I finally picked up, not because I wanted to hear her voice, but because I wanted to hear what came next. Are you insane? She snapped, before I could say a word. I stayed silent. Let her go on. You froze the card. Do you have any idea what that's done to Mom and Dad? They're at the pharmacy today trying to pick up Mom's medication, and the transaction was declined. Declined, Dana. There was a beat of silence like she expected me to gasp or apologize. I didn't. I warned them months ago, I said quietly. Told them it was for emergencies only. They made their choice. So did I. That's so like you. You always have to act like you're better than everyone else. What? Just because you have a steady job and no kids to worry about, suddenly you're the moral police. I sat down slowly at the table, letting her voice roll over me like static. I don't think I'm better, I said. But I am done pretending I'm not being taken advantage of. You weren't. God, you're so dramatic. You always twist everything to be about you. This family has needs, Dana. You've never understood what it's like to have to put your kids first, to worry about bills piling up, to go on luxury vacations and hide the charges under someone else's name. I cut in. My voice was still calm. Dead calm. Or maybe I just don't understand the part where I cover your groceries 1 month and then see charges from an oceanfront steakhouse the next. That wasn't even expensive. $142.59, Caroline. On a weekday. For lunch. She went quiet. I heard her breathing hard, like she was pacing, building steam. You're punishing all of us because you're bitter. Because you're alone. Oh, there it was. That's what you think this is? I said. Bitterness. I think, she hissed, that you liked holding it over us. That's why you never said no. Because it made you feel important. And now you're trying to humiliate us. You know Mom's been crying for 2 days? You know Dad had to call Rick for help. Oh, I said dryly. So now Rick's good for something? Another beat of silence. Caroline's voice dropped lower. You think you're so righteous. You think we need you. But guess what? We don't. We'll figure it out without your precious card. We always do. Good, I said. I hope you do. Then I hung up. I stared at my phone for a moment longer, waiting for the next message, the next passive-aggressive guilt trip. But none came, at least not immediately. And that silence? That was louder than anything she'd just screamed at me. Over the next few days, the fallout kept unfolding like dominoes. First came the email from the credit card company. They'd completed the preliminary review and found multiple unauthorized users and suspicious spending patterns. A fraud case had been opened. The card was officially locked, and I was no longer liable for over 80% of the charges. Then I got a voicemail from Mom. Her voice was watery, slow. Dana, honey, I don't understand why you're doing this. We're family. We've always helped each other. We're just disappointed. That's all. Disappointed. That word echoed in my head like a siren. Not sorry. Not, we didn't know how much we were hurting you. Just disappointment that their gravy train had pulled into the station and the doors had closed. Then came Rick's turn. His text was longer this time, riddled with spelling mistakes and all-caps rants about how you don't turn your back on blood and how real families stick together, even when times get hard. I almost laughed. Rick hadn't had a real job in 5 years. His hard times were mostly self-inflicted: pyramid schemes, failed crypto ventures, and a podcast that lasted 3 episodes and was recorded in a closet. I didn't reply. I wasn't going to. But I did one thing. I forwarded all of their messages, Caroline's, Mom's, Rick's, to a secure folder I'd labeled History. Just in case. Because I knew, deep down, this wasn't over. Not even close. A week passed. I didn't hear from any of them. It was strange, waking up without that low-level dread buzzing in my chest. I worked in peace. I cooked for myself. I even started reading again, something I hadn't done in months. I began to realize how much mental space my family had taken up. How many late nights I'd spent worrying about their bills, their needs, their passive-aggressive remarks that somehow made me feel selfish for not doing more. But the peace didn't last. Because on Friday morning, I got a letter. Not a text. Not an email. A real, handwritten letter. Mailed to my apartment. No return address. Inside was a note. 6 lines. You've made your point. We're sorry if we hurt your feelings. But this tantrum has gone on long enough. You're embarrassing yourself. Just fix it, before you really regret it. No signature. No apology. Just a veiled threat, and a new kind of silence that suddenly felt dangerous. That was the moment I realized they weren't just entitled. They were preparing to push back, and I wasn't sure how far they'd go. The letter sat on my kitchen counter for 2 days. I didn't touch it again after reading it. I didn't throw it out either. I just left it there, its jagged handwriting peeking out from under the corner of my napkin holder, like some quiet threat I couldn't quite look at directly. I kept rereading that last line, before you really regret it. At first, I thought maybe it was just Caroline being dramatic. She was always the one to escalate. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't her style. She was too loud, too self-righteous to hide behind anonymous notes. And Rick? He could barely write a full sentence without using LOL or a GIF. This was someone trying to be careful, trying to send a message without fingerprints. And that scared me more than any of their screaming ever had. I considered going to the police, but what could I say? My family sent me a letter without a return address, and I feel threatened. It wouldn't go anywhere. I knew that. So I did what I always do when things get tense. I documented everything. I scanned the letter, stored it in my now-growing folder of digital receipts. Added a few photos of the envelope, too. I also set up a camera in the hallway outside my apartment, pointed at my door. Nothing obvious, just one of those tiny, battery-powered ones you can disguise in a flower pot. I wasn't paranoid. I was prepared. By the following week, the silence from my family wasn't just loud. It was tactical. Until it broke. It was a Wednesday. I remember because I had just finished a meeting with a client who couldn't figure out how to unmute himself on Zoom for 15 full minutes. I was drained. I opened my email just to clear notifications, and that's when I saw it. Subject line, urgent, family health emergency. It was from Caroline. The message read, Dana, Dad's in the hospital. It's his heart. Mom is freaking out. We need you. Please. I know things have been tense, but this isn't the time. Please come. My stomach dropped. I stared at the message for a long time, then picked up my phone and dialed the hospital. I asked for my father by name, confirmed his birth date. The nurse on the other end said, "I'm sorry, we don't have any patients by that name here." I blinked. "Are you sure?" "Positive. If he was admitted, he's not here." I hung up, and I saw it for what it was. A trap. They wanted me to come running. Drop everything. Show up vulnerable. Maybe to guilt me into fixing things. Maybe to ambush me into resolving everything their way. Or maybe, given the letter, they wanted to scare me into thinking I had no choice. But they made one critical mistake. They underestimated how deeply I was done. I waited 2 more days. No follow-up. No updates about Dad's heart emergency. Nothing. And then I made my move. I started with the credit report. I'd signed up for full monitoring after the letter, another layer of protection. And it turned out to be a good thing, because there it was, a soft inquiry from a mortgage lender. In my name. Using my email. But from an address I didn't recognize. My blood went cold. I traced the address. It was in Caroline's neighborhood. A new build. I dug deeper. It turned out the property had been recently viewed and applied for by someone using a version of my name, with minor tweaks to the spelling. They'd used my old phone number, one I had when I lived with my parents. They were trying to take out a loan. In my name. With my credit. It was stupid. Sloppy. But just close enough to cause damage if I hadn't caught it. I called the lender. I reported it as fraud. Then I contacted a lawyer. The next few days were a blur of paperwork, verifications, affidavits. I sent documents to freeze my credit, blocked inquiries, flagged my accounts. My lawyer helped me file a formal identity theft report, and we included every piece of evidence I had. The charges on the credit card, the unsigned letter, the fake medical emergency, the suspicious mortgage inquiry. And then came the part one didn't expect. The lawyer asked if I wanted to press charges. I hesitated. Did I? I thought about all the times I paid their bills without complaint. The birthdays they forgot. The way they laughed behind my back, mocking my lonely life. The way Mom looked at me with that mix of judgment and pity. The way Rick leeched off me for years. The smug way Caroline flaunted her family life, as if it made her superior, while quietly draining my resources like a parasite. And I said, yes, I do. The process took weeks. The police followed up. Investigators interviewed the lender, who confirmed the application had been made in person by a woman, blonde, mid-30s, driving a gray Honda. The description matched Caroline. They pulled security footage, got her face on camera. When she was questioned, she claimed she was helping me, said I'd asked her to assist with paperwork, that I was overwhelmed, that I'd always said I needed help managing my finances. She even produced an old, outdated power of attorney form I'd signed years ago during Dad's first health scare, one that didn't even cover financial accounts. It didn't work. The DA declined to press criminal charges, but Caroline was hit with a civil suit for attempted fraud. The lender blacklisted her. She lost her teaching license over the scandal. Turns out, trying to commit identity fraud disqualifies you from managing other people's children. Rick was dragged into it, too, when it was revealed he'd helped her digitally scan my documents without my consent. He was fined for his part and lost what little credibility he had left. And my parents? They begged me to drop it. They called. They wrote letters. Even Dad, who never used to say much, left a voicemail that broke something inside me. "We didn't raise you to be cruel, Dana. Family forgives." I didn't respond, because what he didn't understand, what none of them understood, was that I had forgiven. Over and over and over again. Every time they took and acted like it was owed. Every time they dismissed me, excluded me, ridiculed me for not living life on their terms. Forgiveness wasn't the problem. The problem was that they mistook my silence for approval. So I changed my number, updated my email, blocked them on social media. I told my lawyer to forward all communication through legal channels only. Then I moved. Quietly. No goodbye. I rented a small cottage in a coastal town 3 hours away. Still remote work, still simple, but mine. Peaceful. The kind of peace you only get after a storm you didn't start, but finally finished. It's been 6 months now. Sometimes I wonder if they still talk about me, if I'm the villain in their family story. The bitter, childless spinster who turned on her own. But I don't lose sleep over it anymore. I sip my coffee in silence. I read by the ocean. I answer to no one but myself. And for the first time in my adult life, I feel whole. They spent years calling me selfish for not having a family. Turns out, not having them was the most generous thing I ever did for myself.